Don't look at them. The crowd flows in its tandems around Lawlin, pairs and pairs filling the lane, all lost so deep in their closeness they hardly notice her. She is an islet in their stream, and their murmurs, their meaningful gestures, their silent way of understanding each other wash against her like driftwood. Their world is filled with the promise that one half completes the other. A twin saves a twin from the curse of being alone. This truth, to them, is the greatest thing there is. But the quiet is bigger. Here, standing alone in the stream of their togetherness, she feels it all around her, waiting to envelop them. She keeps her eyes down, not to keep away the envy, the poison of loneliness, the empty space beside her where her sister should be. She'd spent every tear she had over the last 3 days on all of those, let the wailing scrape her throat raw. There's nothing she could see in them now that would hurt in a way she wasn't already. She keeps her eyes down, so that she doesn't have to wonder what will happen when all of them feel it the way she does. When they find that the quiet isn't some illness that wafts in and changes you, that it's been hanging over all of them like a pall this whole time, only held away by a web of lies. It'll not be a fair sight, says a voice in her memory. Eyes down. Don't see them together. Only think of their gaunt faces, pale skin, purple-stained lips. Think of all those small children put from the womb into the cold earth. Think of her, and her wonder, still burning underneath your misery like an ember. She retreats into the agony of the thought, lets the pain guide her feet. After 3 days languishing in the emptiness of her loft, it had been the only way she could make herself leave. Now she knows it's the only way she'll make herself end this terrible thing. Eyes down, Lou. Don't look at them. In the space of a breath, it was over. The mothers had been in their hammock, wailing together. Moira had been at their side, doing all she could to soothe and calm and reassure. There was the tiny form of the thing that was not a child in Lawlin's arms as she approached the doorway. And then the quieting of one voice, a crescendoing agony in the other. Silence. She rushed back to join her sister at the hammock's edge. Inside, the mothers lay curled together among the cushions, like the nested petals of a flower. In all ways but one, they were reflections of each other. Hair the same flowing mess, ears like sails, worry-worn bags beneath their eyes. The only true difference was the gentle rise and fall in one of their chests. Slowing, ragged breaths between purple-stained lips. A drop, the same color, rolled like a tear from them, trailing across her cheek. Lawlin had never seen it done before. It happened, she knew. She'd been ready to swallow the bud all her life should anything ever happen to Moira. One half follows the other. But to see it was different than to think it. It was not the dramatic thing she had always envisioned. There were none of the convulsions or sounds of choking. The mother had been weeping, and then whimpering, and then only breathing, and then not. Around the mother's wrist was the bracelet of dried vine, frayed where her teeth had torn into it. For that moment, Lawlin's own bracelet seemed to hang from her like a stone, purple bud hidden in the green. She saw herself and her sister in the hammock, imagined the bitterness of that nectar on her own tongue. Her throat tightened on itself with the phantom sensation. Perhaps it was a selfish way to think. Maybe she should have been shocked or racked over with grief at what had happened. But there was no keeping her thoughts from what it meant for the two of them. She looked for the same thought in the mirror of her sister's face. It wasn't there. All she saw in Moira was exhaustion, the kind of tired that misses the body altogether, lays itself deep inside, makes the soul want to sleep. It'll not be the first time this has happened, Moo, Lawlin tried quietly. The best doula could not protect a mother from her own love. Her sister seemed not to hear the words at all. She only stood, staring sideways into the hammock. After several long seconds, she moved to the center of the loft, let out a long breath, and slumped onto the floor. Her eyes were far away. "It was not right," she finally croaked. "What, Moo?" "My mind will not have it any other way. Grief's done plenty of mothers since the quiet started up, and no doubt... She swallowed, and the sound was dry enough for Lawlin to hear. It did gale her, sure enough. There'll be no helping that. That's it, said Lawlin, moving away from the hammock, creature still writhing feebly in her arms. That's the way to think of it. We do every single thing that we can. It'll not be on our hearts each time it comes out tragic, will it? Murray nodded slowly to herself. And Rowan, she did well. It'll never be an easy thing to take the bud. Good sister, Rowan. Only, her big eyes found Lawlin's. Did you hear what Giller was saying before the grief did her? 'Twas not right, Lou. Lawlin focused. The sound of the mother's agony had been familiar enough to blur into the birthing process. It was the ambiance of grief that came with every single-born babe. Grief at what her child was and what they would do with it. Lawlin knew it well enough not to pay it any mind. But yes, thinking of it now, she'd heard what Murray meant. There had been something strange in it. Not only grief, but an air of wild desperation. Just a boy, Giller had repeated over and over. He's just a boy. You'll not take a boy to die, will you? He's done nothing. How can you do that to a little child? Lawlin had almost had to pry the thing out of her arms, fierce for a woman who'd just given birth. And then the ambience had peaked as Lawlin neared the door, and faltered, and died away. She'll not have been in her right mind, she tried again. Love can make you plucked raving mad, you know. Murray stopped looking at her and, slowly, face in her hands, legs crossed and pulled close to her chest, collapsed into herself. Her voice came out broken. She'd not even known what it was that came out of her. I should have been able to bring a pinch of calmness to her, but she'd not have it. Not for anything. All she could see was her child, and you taking it from her. It was not right, Lou. Lawlin watched the crumpled shape of her sister and felt the exhaustion in herself. Whatever Murray felt, Lawlin felt the smaller half of it. It had gotten worse over the last season. When the quiet had first come and the walls had gone up, it had been maybe 1 in a dozen children. Now she couldn't remember the last time they delivered a healthy pair of twins. For weeks it had been grotesque little bodies, grieving mothers, mourners hard at work with their spades in the field. And slowly, failed birth after failed birth, she'd felt the life and the joy leak out of her sister. She set the thing that was not a child down on the floor in front of Murray, and then scooted in behind her so that her sister was sitting between her knees. She put her chin on Murray's shoulder, cheek to cheek, and pointed at the thing. You just look at it, Moo. Where are its ribbies? Cheekbones? How can it be so fat, and eyes so open wide already? How can it have the strength to move its little arms like that? It's all you have to do, look at it, and then you know. Little monster ate its brother before it ever tasted air. She retracted her arm and wrapped it around her sister's middle, ran her free hand through Murray's hair, down the vein of the feather behind her ear. I'll not let you make yourself responsible for her fantasies, Moo. A mother's love will drive her to the strangest things, even stop her heart, even for a monster. They sat that way for some time. The little thing stared vacantly at the ceiling, but never cried. Eventually, Lawlin felt cool fingertips against the back of her hand. Murray let her head loll backward onto her sister's shoulder and said, raspily, I'm not made for this, I think. Lawlin might have smiled at that if things were different. Instead, she continued to touch her sister's hair and said, Oh no? Well, I'd not say I'm much good as a midwife, but we do what we have to. When do you think it'll be over? Lawlin shrugged. They'll not have woven the wall for nothing. If the clans at the Aban are anything to learn from, I guess this is the start of it. Could be next season, could be next solstice. I want to be done with it. We will be, Lawlin crooned. Till then, each day'll be its own hill to cross. Only, those'll not be so bad as this. Murray craned her head backward, nudged her sister's neck with her nose. Let's be done with this, then. For at least tonight. You should be off first. She gestured with her head toward the thing on the floor as she rose to her feet. There'll not be much time before it begins to turn. I can stay and put things right for the mourners before they come. Lawlin snorted, letting Murray help her off the floor. Why do you want to hurry yourself, Moo? It'll not be a great, stomping, bone-munching ogre before sunrise. Takes a few days for one this small, and the order will do it pretty fast once we give it over. I'll stay and help you with things, thanks." And so she did, and they made a small effort to clean for the mourners, because that was polite. They washed the drying fluid from their hands, and from the creature, and from the floor, the stuff of birth. They gathered their tools, Lawlen's herbs and instruments, Murray's soothing trinkets. They pulled a blanket over the mothers, and swaddled the creature in Lawlen's arms. They exchanged no words throughout the process, but she could feel the exhaustion lifting in her sister, however gently. Soon they would be home, and they could pretend until the next delivery that things were better. Lawlen paused on the threshold for the second time that evening. A sound from inside the loft. Murray was already rushing back in. It was that of a small voice whispering, "Maru? Magail? Can I come out now?" Before Lawlen could gather what exactly was happening, the child was in Murray's arms. She turned him so that there was no chance he'd see the bodies. "Hey, boy, hey," Murray said, making a sad effort to hide the panic from her voice. "Now where just have you been?" He didn't say anything. He only stared in mute shock at the stranger holding him. Murray ran a hand through her own hair. "Do you live here?" He continued to stare, and looked for all the world like he would shrink away into nothing if Murray removed her hands. She looked to Lawlen desperately. "Well, where's your brother?" she tried. The thought seemed to form slowly on his face, brow furrowing through the confusion. He cast another cautious glance at Murray, and then, slowly, extended a single small finger, pointing at the thing in Lawlen's arms. The clan house isn't what she remembers. Somehow, in the space of several days, it's transformed entirely. Not the shape of it, or the look. Something in her own head. There, it's always been a cocoon of fine architecture, fungal caps and guided branches wrapping the bole of a god tree, skywalks branching out into the surrounding canopy to make it the great hub of Westmere. Now, it's the largest spider she's ever seen. The other spindle sylph walk in their pairs beneath it, unafraid of how deep they're tangled in its web. It looms patiently over them, thousands of tiny bioluminescent mushroom eyes glowing from within its windows. Behind them, thousands more. Mourners, clergy, elders, doulas, midwives. She knows there's no hunger in any of them, only a desire to protect, to weave a web so thick the quiet can't filter through. No need for spinnerets or silk. Faith is a strong enough thread. She approaches the door. The roots have been guided into the shape of an arch. Almost, she thinks, like an open mouth. Will it spit her out when she's done? Will she be as bitter on its tongue as the bud? It doesn't matter. The stories can all wither. No more tale of the sisters, sun and moon, and how they needed one another to make her people. No more lie that one twin is the soul of intellect, the other vitality. No more the cruelty that the two together make a life, and for the good of all, a twinless thing must die. The halls are covered in murals. They tell the story in swirling lavenders and violets, recesses and reliefs. When they hear what she has to say, those elders and mourners in their council chamber, all this art will be as good to anyone as so many cobwebs in the trees. It'll not be a fair sight, the quiet finally laying upon all of them, but it's lain upon her, and still the ember glows beneath, that stab of misplaced wonder. The truth for a smothering, either to have her sister back, or to be rid of this thing inside her. Both worthy trades. The mourners had come and taken the boy and the thing that was not a child, not away to the clan house to swallow the bud. Not yet. For now they were huddled together in the corner of Lawlen's own loft. Their whispers wafted across the room, inaudible tremors on the air. She'd heard it said that mourners could speak softer than the wind through feathers. She was glad for it. Despite the prick in her ears, despite how hard the boy was weeping, she wasn't sure that she wanted to listen. They'd arrived near dawn after collecting the mothers. No beetle-drawn wagons, no entourage of augurs and assistants, just the pair in their cowls and face paints. Moira had been hoping for something like this, more intimate than the usual send-off the single-born receive. Lawlin could feel it, the smaller half of her sister's hope swelling inside her. Hope wrapped about a sliver of dread. The image of Moira rushing to the boy, protecting him from the sight of his mothers in their hammock, stuck in her head. They hadn't fought that night, but for the first time in 3 solstices they'd come close. Her sister had been adamant about the child. Although his cheeks lacked a healthy hollow, ribs were hidden beneath too much soft flesh, skin was a more vibrant tone of sage than most. She would not allow Lawlin to take him or the thing that he'd called his brother away. Only have a message sent, and wait. So the night had gone, a monster and a strangeness hidden in their home until dawn. The mourners held their hushed conversation with the boy, and Lawlin sat with her sister in patient silence. They hadn't asked her to, but it had grown between them in the night. She thought of the wall encircling Westmere, countless branches coaxed into a wicker weave to keep the quiet in. It was as if the two of them were building their own small patch of it here. Across the open loft, the mourners rose. They left the boy in the hammock, tears drying on his cheeks, thing that he called brother cradled in his arms. "Lolore, Morwala," said one of the two, voice like a breeze. "It's a strange hammock you've hung for yourselves." "We spoke with the boy," said the other. "Let him know what came of his mothers. He gave us all the rest. There'll be a reckoning to find here, certainly. We'd be pleased, however, if you'd first be kind enough to help us gather why—" He trailed off and looked to the first mourner, who picked up the thread. "Why you felt it wise to secret the two away in your loft the whole night, instead of bringing them straight away to us." There was no accusation in the question, no hidden threat. Still, Lawlin had been planning the response in her head. Over and over, the same exchange, choosing and changing the words she would say to protect her sister, herself. Her mouth was already open, poised to recite. "It was not right," said Moira. Lawlin paused with her mouth open. All 3 heads turned to look at her sister. "How just will it not have been right?" said the first mourner. A moment of quiet passed between them. Lawlin saw the hesitation cross her sister's face, felt it in herself. Moira should have looked at her then, known the desperation mounting in her. She should have wanted to stop and reach for her other half. For that moment, Lawlin waited and hoped. And then the moment passed. "Sending him off like that, I mean, I'll not have the murkiest clue what it means to a mourner," Moira began, and her voice was more tired than it was fierce. "But the quiet's made a midden of our clan. You'll have seen it, sure enough. Everyone will. We've been putting more babes into your hands than into their mother's arms." "The quiet's a misery wherever it spreads," said the second mourner. "There'll be no faulting you for the feeling. I feel it well enough myself. It'll not be wrong what you've been doing for the clan, though, surely. Only just sad, unfortunate, and in the end, best." "It is, though," Moira said, louder than Lawlin had expected. She seemed to realize that she was holding her arms exasperatedly out in front of her and folded them together. Lawlin felt the exhaustion battling the caution inside her. "I'll mean by that," Moira went on, "it is wrong. When the wall went up, I thought, good, could be it not only keeps the quiet getting out, but also stops more of it getting in. When they started turning folk into doulas and midwives to keep their eyes all over, I thought, fine enough. We'll not do well to have Ma and Pa hiding away their lone child and setting all kind of monsters on us. It'll be a grim thing, I thought, but better a misbegotten babe or two than the rest of us." She narrowed her eyes, exhaustion beginning to win out. "Who ever was going to tell us that it could be this way? That we not be so much doula and midwife as—" She held up her hands at a loss. Still, she did not look at Lawlin. "How should I say it, just undertaker and keener? Were we ever to know that it'd be our lot?" When the first spoke, his voice was as serene as it had ever been. "There's many a midwife, many a doula, who feel the quiet's toll. It's a burden, sure enough. Do you suppose it'd serve us better to relieve them, each and all? Let the quiet unfold how it will? I'll not try to imagine the blood that'd flow, said the second with unnerving impassivity. Perhaps it'll not be so much as we spill now, birth by awful birth. Moira deflated. Whatever fight was in her dwindled away, leaving only the exhaustion. For perhaps the first time in her life, Lolin was relieved to see her sister so crestfallen. She might have taken her hand if only the mourners weren't watching. Well, there'll not be anything for it, will there? Only, I'm so tired of it. I've put so many children into your hands. I saw the boy, so old for one of them, and so sweet, and not a monster at all, and She put a hand over her eyes. Maybe the mourners could hear the way she was fighting the tears in her voice, but Lolin felt the sensation of it. She closed her eyes against it. I thought, Moira said, between measured breaths, if there were some freckle of a chance the Order, not just got it wrong, but missed something. That is, they always did say it only takes so long for a sylph on their own to get the hunger. But you look at him. She aimed a finger at the boy weakly. How long will it have been, and still only so small? If there were any freckle of a chance he could grow up. She didn't say anything more after that. The mourners looked at each other. There was that soft sound, voices so much like wind through feathers between them. Lolin almost thought she heard her name in it. They both made a slow nod and turned their gaze on the sisters. She couldn't formulate a guess as to what came next, but knew that something must. The word reckoning continued to ring in her head. There may yet be, said the first. A chance for the boy, that is, the second interjected. If you'll please, the first continued, tell me just, what did you think of Gaelwan and Roiler? The image of the mothers folded together in their hammock was still fresh in Lolin's mind. It would be, she thought, for a long time still. She touched Moira's shoulder to keep her from seizing the conversation again. We'd not known them all too well before we had the call, she said. Hard thing to keep so many names and sorrows in your head that way. But I'd say from the look of her that Gaeler had a weak heart and a fine, fine sister. Rowan did her part good and soundly as soon as Gaeler passed. That's a fair enough thought, for all that you know, said the first. Fairer, I'd say, to call Gaeler a sorry mother and have an end of it, said the second. For the first time since the mourners had come away from the children, Moira looked at Lolin, a comfort, finally, to find the confusion she was feeling mirrored in her sister's features. What can you mean by that? Said Lolin. Could be it's best we show you before we try and put words to it, said the first. Only, the second went on, we'll be putting a great weight of truth in your hands. From the sound, you have the hearts for it. If not, be it on our feathered heads, said the first. Let's be off with it then. The second nodded, and they both proceeded to draw back their cowls, remove the amber lenses from their eyes. You can call me Orsha, and my brother, this is Elia. Even through the paint, Lolin could see the difference in them. Orsha's eyes were pale blue, his brother's green. His feathers tapered sharp at the ends, brother's rounded smooth. They'd done all they could to hide it, but seeing them out of their disguise, Lolin wondered how she hadn't known sooner. They weren't even quite the same height. Close, but not quite. It wasn't only the difference between the two of them that kept her staring, wordless. It was the difference between them and every other person she'd seen. Their cheeks lacked a healthy hollow. Their skin was a more vibrant shade of sage than most. Lolin felt her own hand grasp at her sister's, felt Moira grasp back. Their grip tightened until it was almost painful. Her voice came out tremulous, like something fragile about to break. Ogres, are you? Orsha's brow furrowed. He exchanged a look with Elga. Do you often crave flesh? Elga frowned in mock contemplation. I've been known now and again to eat the rind off my fruit, if that'll do. To you then, Lolare, Morola, is this the face of hunger? Orsha bared his teeth in part as he spoke. Do you think we've been sharpening these teeth on bones? The only answer was no. His teeth were white and clean and set into a face with a complexion that spoke of comfort, not craving. There was none of the savagery she'd been told to fear, none of the mindless fury or unbound strength. Murray's grip loosened. Llewellyn held on. Still, neither of them spoke. There was a change in the brothers when they realized the twins weren't ready to ask anything else. The facetiousness went out of them, replaced with concern. Llewellyn was reminded of the way a parent looks at a distraught child. Orsh's shoulders sank. "It'll do us no good, will it, hoping you take all this light?" "If that's the way it'll be," Ilya added, "might as well do away with all the frippery and have it out simple." "Right. I'll not fuss and croon any more then." Orshi frowned to himself in thought, tucked a rogue strand of hair behind one of his feathers. It was a small gesture, but it told Llewellyn of hesitation, discomfort. "The orders had you all fearing loneliness like it was some poison," he began, carefully. "Off with the lone babes to be put in the earth. Champ down on the bud if your twin ever goes. Anything to keep off that evil, evil thing, loneliness. And I'll not say just that it's upon their wickedness or such like. Sure enough, there have been times past when the truth of it got out, and that'll not have been a fair sight." "A fair sight?" Ilya broke in. "Right. I'll not call sylphs throttling each other in the lane, sliding pins under each other's nails, putting each other to the flame a fair sight myself." "Well, it'll not have been. But that's the look of it when a whole clan finds they never had so much to do with the sun and moon after all. But plainly just... Llewellyn, Murray, to love your twin is a fine enough thing. To need them." Orshi gestured to himself and his brother, the child and the babe in the hammock. "We all do so much better without." "Better," said Murray, almost a whisper. "Oh, quite a generous pinch better," said Ilya. "You're born into halves, all of you. Half the strength, half the lifetime, half the downy life. You'll be biting the bud at your 100th solstice, and Orsha and I'll only be halfway through. That's what it is to be born a twin." Llewellyn squinted at them, as if that might bring what they were trying to articulate into focus. The threads of it seemed to whirl before her, but she couldn't weave them together. She realized she'd been touching the hollow of her own cheek, eyes fixed on Orsha's smooth face. She pulled her hand away, felt herself flush. He gave her the ghost of a smile, all pity beneath. "It'll be hard, but that's the truth of it. Your very own other half is more a poison to you than the loneliness will ever be." Llewellyn can't see, can't hear, feel, think. The world has become a haze. All is quiet. She sways out from the spider's mouth on legs that seem hardly to be there at all. Down the lane, shouldering limply past the pears and pears, up the spiraling steps of the tree to her loft. She freezes in the doorway. She hadn't been able to say it. They'd done everything to make her comfortable, listened to her, given her the time to think, brought her into their warm, dark council chamber filled with smoke. They'd shared the pipe to ease her nerves and put the questions to her in their soft, lilting way. Still, when the time had come, she hadn't been able to make the words leave her mouth, tell them that their lie was known, that there were those on both sides of the wall who could tell the difference between a healthy sylph and one whose life has been choked out by the leeching soul of their other half. Hadn't been able to say that her sister was among them. It wasn't fear that kept the words down. She'd been ready to accept every terrible thing if it meant quenching the ember of her sister down inside, or better, having her again to keep the quiet at bay. It was the realization, there, surrounded by the staring pairs of eyes in the dark, that the quiet would never go away. Not for her, and not for them. Not if they murdered their soul-drinking kin and set the clan house to flame. Not if they wove their web tighter than ever, hunted out every healthy single-born beyond the wall. Not even if they brought her sister back. They would never stop being alone in this world. Maybe they'd touch and love and feel one another beneath all their layers of self. Maybe they'd claim to be the half of another. But in the end, the quiet is bigger. It had always been, and always will be. She hadn't known she was trying to hide from it until she was there, a drop of poison in the belly of the spider. Even as her senses dulled beneath the revelation, she'd had the wherewithal to feed them a convenient lie. Something about her sister getting lost on the other side of the wall. After that, all she remembered was murmuring and lots of nodding. The rest was like a dream. When the haze begins to clear, she finds herself standing in the emptiness of her loft. The dusk shadows are a mural on the walls and floor. Violets and lavenders creep over the recesses and reliefs to tell a story of things that are missing. She lets them blur into her dazed periphery, as good to her now as cobwebs in the trees. One point in her vision sharpens, seems to come into focus before everything else. Her sister's torn bracelet, still resting in the hammock. "We should go, Lou." She tried not to listen. Moira's skin was warm on her face, fingers sifting easily through her hair. The mourners had taken the children hours ago. It was only the two of them now, lying together in the hammock, the way it ought to be. The new strangeness of the mourners, the boy and his brother, the sleeping mothers wherever they were now, all of it could be forgotten, if only Lawlin could keep her cheek pressed against the warmth of Moira's chest. The fingers stopped moving in her hair. "I think it'd be good for us out there." Lawlin had been holding her breath, as if that would somehow stretch the moment longer than it was. She let it out and shifted against her sister. "I'll not see how." "Think of it," Moira said, voice small, someplace far away. "Whole clan of them, with not a worry to spare for how a child is born. No need of doulas and midwives, walls. We could be safe from the quiet." Lawlin kept her mouth closed. She wanted to say something about how safe and indifferent are not one and the same, but the hope flickering in her sister made her hold it back. It fought the doubt inside Lawlin like a flame under a summer shower. "Can we, Lou?" She buried her face in Moira. "Lou?" "I'll not," she said, voice muffled. She felt Moira flinch beneath her, like she was about to say something but had decided against it. A silence passed between them before Moira finally said, "It's not wrong to be afraid, you know. It's a great new thing, this, different from all we ever knew." So eager. If Lawlin could do it with a shred of honesty, she'd have told her sister that she hadn't believed a word the mourners had told them, that the world was as it had always been, and would go on that way. But the brothers were their own proof, and she couldn't deny what she'd seen. So instead, she lifted her head from her sister and said, perhaps more venomously than she meant to, "They called us leeches, Moo. One in every feathered pair. To them will not be two halves of a better whole, not daughters of the sisters, not mere siblings at all. A sylph and a—" She tried to remember the word they'd used. "A twin-born. That's all we'll be to them." She sat up in the hammock, met her sister's big eyes. They were not full of the fear that she was feeling. They were full of something else, distant and unfamiliar. "Are you so eager to go someplace where every last person thinks we're killing each other?" Lawlin pressed on. "Where one of us, and who just knows which, is told to be poison for the other?" "What's it matter if we are?" Lawlin stared. There was no cruel edge in the way Moira said it, but the words nevertheless cut like a knife through the space between them. Lawlin's hands reached out trembling in front of her, as if they'd somehow be able to find and stop this invisible thing that was happening. When they couldn't, she began to gibber. She knew that she was doing it, and that it was pathetic, but she couldn't stop herself. It finally ended in the phrase, "You're the half of me, Moo." Moira put her hands flat against Lawlin's in the air between them. Lawlin paused and breathed, and the two laced their fingers together. "I am that," Moira whispered. There were tears in her eyes now as well, but they were not tears of sympathy. "I am. But I'll not be able to go on like this after what we've seen. I'll not be able to watch children die, deliver them up for it, only to protect this farce." Lawlin straightened her back, composed herself as best she could. The words poured out of her so rapidly, even she could hear the desperation in them. "We'll tell then. I know those mourners said we'll not be wise to, but pluck him bald. If it's all true, it's time anyway." "Come now, Lou. Do you think it'll all be flowers and buggies when we tell the clan that each of their twins is lapping up the other's life? Do you think the council will hear it easy?" "Then," Lawlin said, mouth moving faster than her mind, "then why'll we not just tell them about the mourners and the children and—" "Because I'm tired, Lou," her sister moaned. and like a cloven dam, the tears came streaming. "I'm so downy tired of this life. I want to go." She paused, and then repeated the words as if tasting them in her mouth for the first time. "I want to go." She looked at Llewellyn. "I want to go." Llewellyn held her eyes. There were so many things she could say, so many false comforts, so many petty reprisals. The only words that came out of her mouth were, "I'll not." "Oh, you'd rather be like those mothers then, would you? So scared you'd bring your children into the quiet if you had to, so scared you'd swallow the bud, just to keep things how they are." She wiped her nose on the back of her hand, sniffed sullenly. "If you're so scared, I'll not make you go with me." Llewellyn froze. She'd never tried to envision life without her sister. There'd never been a need. It was a simple fact that Moira would be there when she woke in the morning, and there when she fell asleep. They would share the still moments in their loft and the wildness of the solstice revel. They'd hold each other and fill the emptiness of the quiet with their own resounding peace. She tried to imagine the absence of all this, and felt as though she was forgetting how to breathe. She didn't mean for it to happen, but suddenly her cheeks were hot and wet, hands gripping the sides of Moira's slip, mouth murmuring a stream of, "Do not go, do not leave me here. You're the half of me, my moo." She felt, for that moment, that if she let go, she might never touch her sister again. They folded into each other, both weeping like children. "I'll not, Lou. I'll not leave you. I'm ashamed I ever said it." "Forget all of it," Llewellyn stammered. "Forget the clan, forget the quiet. Let it only be us. Here." Moira nodded, but said nothing. The petals are cool on her lips. The quiet is a wet quilt upon her. Is this what Rowan, that poor mother, had felt when she decided to swallow the bud? This impossible loneliness? The final affirmation that there was never an escape from the quiet? Not in the stories, not in railing against them, not even in her own twin. Never an escape, save for the purple nothingness of the bud. She touches her teeth to the surface of it. The mothers had been beautiful together. It's nonsense to think about it now, but why not? It hardly matters. Even spattered in the fluids of birth, even with the purple on Rowan's lips, even in their stillness, they had been beautiful, like the nested petals of a flower. What will she be? A single, forgotten petal, left to shrivel in an empty place? Maybe. Or maybe, when that bitter nectar touches her tongue, wherever she is, her sister will wither away as well. Twin-born, the mourners had said, a leech in every pair, and who knows just which. Maybe that's her sister, and this will bring the quiet down upon her as well. Her teeth begin to press on the bud. The anger had been a guttering flame to begin with, and had finally gone out in the clan house. Now her only desire is to be out from beneath this cold blanket. It doesn't matter where her sister is, what will become of her. Don't think of her. This is for you, Lou. But there's a warmth, even here in the cold quiet, an ember burning beneath. Wonder. And because there is nothing ahead, there is nothing to fear. She lets the ember catch, just for now, just to know. Somewhere in her mind, in a place without walls, her sister is raising a boy and a babe. They've made a loft together, and there will be no mourners visiting to spirit any of them away. No children will be born into the earth, no sad souls made to swallow the bud. The trees are all empty of cobwebs. For the first time, she tries to see herself in this new place. It's her home she envisions, Westmere, but changed. Individuals, pairs, groups fill the lane, all lost so deep in themselves they hardly seem to notice her. She is a mote of grey ash on their bed of cinders, and their confidence, purpose, wonder, all beat against her like the heat of a hearth. The quiet has settled in a blanket over all of them, but the intensity in each of them, the ember that drove her sister away, the guttering flame that had guided her to the clan house, protects them from the quiet's cold. The world continues to move, even under the promise of loneliness. She sees all of this in her mind and feels her body jerk upright in the hammock as if waking from a dream. Around her, the loft is empty, still dark. Already, the vision is wavering in her mind. The bud is a stone in her hand. But is that warmth her sister's ember? Or is it something else? What a difficult thing that must be, to build all of your comforts, hopes, and expectations upon one other person, and then to realize only after years and years of living that way, you never learned how to be alone. And that's something all of us, man and machine alike, have to face at some point. There will be loneliness, but will we be able to fill it by ourselves? This was one of the wildest projects we have ever worked on. Certainly one of the most challenging. Just trying to condense a world that interesting into a dozen or so pages and tell a story at the same time? What a task. But I learned a lot from this process, and I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity. A big thanks to World Anvil for making this series possible. There is no way we'd have been able to organize this competition without them. If you're curious about all the fascinating worlds created by the entrants, as well as the winning entry that informed the setting for this story, The Whisper World by Snoop Fluffy, be sure to visit the World Anvil website and look around. Maybe even try your own hand at building a world. It is totally free to use and the best tool there is for this kind of creativity. Before I wrap at any rate, this is where our world building series officially comes to an end. Thanks for watching, and keep making stuff up. I'll see you next time. Bye!